Paul. L. Ron Hubbard attempted to make the screenplay Revolt in the Stars into a film, which seems to be essentially the Xenu story. Surely, if this did end up being turned into a film, then everyone could see it, and this part of the so-called secret levels would simply end up in the hands of everyone. Regardless of the nonsense of getting sick or dying if you are exposed to it, and the obvious contradictions making this public, is there not a real chance that this would have led to even more public ridicule of Scientology brought upon by itself if they released it as a film, as opposed to exposure by others? Also, would it not reduce the cash flow if OT3 is basically available to all? Who's going to pay thousands for what would end up being a public DVD? Okay, now I get to pontificate about Revolt in the Stars and talk to you guys about this, because I finally sat down and read it. And it actually isn't a screenplay. I've been describing it for years as a screenplay because I never actually went and read the whole thing. I knew about it. I knew what it covered in a way, but it was really good to dive in, because what I found out is that it's actually written more like a novella or a short story, including thoughts and ideas and things that people are having. It's not a screenplay, not even, and it's not what you call a treatment. It is awful. I mean, like Battlefield Earth awful. Like, it's bad. It would be awful. So PR-wise, they definitely would not be doing themselves any favors telling this story. And the way it's told is absolutely moronically, idiotically stupid. Exactly as I debunked in my book on OT3. Like, why doesn't OT3 actually make any sense? Because it's logistically impossible to take billions of people and transport them to a planet in airplanes, throw them all in front of volcanoes and blow them all up, and get that all done within less than a year's time. I mean, give me a break. And even the way Hubbard describes it in the whatever, the Revolt in the Stars, whatever it is, I'll just call it a story. How he describes it in there is just as bad as how he describes it in the actual original OT3 materials. So it's just childishly stupid storytelling. Now, that sort of creative criticism to the side, now I want to differentiate and make, and I've said this before many times, but now I get to harp on it a little bit more. The important thing about OT3 is not Xenu. It's the body thetans. It's the clustering of thetans together and the fact that those make up your body now. That's the part that's scary and freaky and is supposed to cause you to get pneumonia and die. Not the Xenu story, which sounds and looks exactly like a science fiction story. And here's how I can say that, is because Revolt in the Stars is just the science fiction part. It doesn't talk about or mention anywhere in the story thetans, spiritual entities, body thetans, clustering, none of that. None of the implanting is there that I saw. I mean, they just blew everybody up. Hubbard creates a story where Xenu, as this galactic overlord, as this sole ruler of this, I think it's 56 planets is what he puts in the story. This ruler is this tyrannic despot, and he gathers all these people up using renegades, exactly as described in the OT3 write-up, and he brings them all to Earth, and he blows them all up at Mount Shasta, Mount Hood, Mount Vesuvius, every volcano Hubbard could name, even though this happened so many millions of years ago that those volcanoes didn't even exist and the Earth wasn't even the same. But we're not going to have to debunk it at that level. That happens in the story, but none of the spiritual part of that OT3 narrative, the Scientology part of that picture, that's not in the story. So the idea of the Revolt in the Stars was Hubbard was going to use the story, the sci-fi part of it, to get everybody all riled up and re-stimulated, and oh my God, and that would attract their attention, he thought, to L. Ron Hubbard and his other works in Scientology, and then they would come into Scientology and learn about thetans, and their own spiritual nature and progress up the bridge and go clear. And then they would get to OT3 and they would read this, volcanoes and blowing people up and Xenu, and they'd go, oh, this is like that Revolt in the Stars movie, except all this other spiritual stuff is now being added into it. And it turns out that the big reveal, that the big punchline at the end isn't that Xenu blew everything up. It's that we were all there, and as spiritual entities, we were clustered together and we were stuck together, and we are now all batshit crazy because we are just one of many entities that make up our body, that make up who we are as human beings, that makes us crazy and act crazy toward ourselves and toward each other. See, it's all the spiritual stuff that's the really crazy, damaging, horrible part of that story, not the sci-fi side of it. So even before anyway, so there you go. So that's why the Revolt in the Stars could have been made into a movie, and theoretically, if David Miscavige really wanted to, shoot himself in the head and throw Scientology over the cliff, then they could invest in making that into a movie. But I think Miscavige already learned from Battlefield Earth that that is not a very good marketing strategy, and it did not do them any favors to try to bring L. Ron Hubbard's childishly stupid storytelling to the screen and try to create a blockbuster on the order of Star Wars or Star Trek. And that was what L. Ron Hubbard had in mind when he wrote Revolt in the Stars. Was he even twisted it all around to make it a hero story, and he uses the same hero and heroine that he uses in every one of his stories, including the whole Mission Earth series. Those two archetypes, those two tropes, those sort of stereotypes are used by Hubbard over and over and over again in his stories. The dashing blonde hero and the beautiful vixen minx heroine female sidekick, and all the cast of criminals and characters. And oh god, Revolt in the Stars is just so awful. It was really hard to read. It really was, guys. The sacrifices I make. Anyway, let's just see. I'm gonna see if I missed anything else on this. Yeah, I think I've described the situation, so I hope that that's clear. And if there's anything confusing about what I said here or anything, just let me know, and I'll clarify it.